Blue Bloods aren't transferring over, but a wild weekend for sports bettors if you're looking directly at those Sweet 16 Elite 8 games. Teddy, I got to say, I was on Virginia, and I was appreciative of that game.
Me and you both, my friend. And look, once in a while, the betting gods either give you a gift or they rip your heart out. And Virginia was certainly not a right side in that game. At no point at the end of regulation did you expect to cash. At no point in overtime did you expect to cash. Didn't even take the lead till there was, 10 or 15 seconds left in OT. Carson Edwards goes nuts for Purdue. But the Cavs hit all 4 free throws in the closing seconds, and literally the closing second. My apologies if you had Purdue. They were a right side. It's brutal when beats like that happen. They can and will happen, though. And once in a while, you find yourself on the wrong side or the right side of one of those beats like I was on Saturday. Kept me smiling, my friend. How about yourself?
Yeah, exactly. No, but when we like to say in the sports betting world, the gamblers and the gambler gods get it, take it away from you, because the night before, we actually filmed the show on Friday, and we went back and forth before we shot it. I was on Houston, and I was hurt badly that night, Ted, and you were on Kentucky. So you got the double dip back-to-back. I at least got it back with that game with Virginia. It's an amazing thing because you're right about it. Heading down the stretch, you saw Virginia take maybe a 7-8 point lead midway through the second half. Things were looking up, but every step of the way down the stretch, and just to get it to overtime with Diakite's jumper at the buzzer gave you life. And as we like to say, Teddy, in overtime, that's where those dogs go to die.
Oh, well, they went to die in the last 10 seconds of that. But, I mean, when you think about the fact that Virginia was the only favorite to cover all weekend in the Elite Eight matchups, and that was maybe the worst beat of the year in college hoops. Make no mistake about it, but that was it. For favorites, if you were laying points this weekend and you cashed one ticket, you were lucky. If you're trying to cash more than one ticket, not so lucky. Obviously, the dogs ruled in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, an interesting game also, Teddy, just to bring up that Auburn game versus Kentucky. Watching that game and sitting through, it was a wonderment because at halftime, Kentucky did have the 5-point lead, hitting the 3-pointer late, but you felt Kentucky should have been up double digits or even more in the first half. Auburn fights all the way back and takes the victory and the plus 4.5, and then we saw last night in the Duke game. Look, if you like college basketball, there was a lot of theater in that game. Some late swings in the game, missed free throws. Practice your free throws out there, kids. But we're going to set up an interesting Final Four that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. But those games coming back, and you're right, taking the points was the way to go here, Teddy.
It sure was. I mean, it was turnovers that doomed Duke yesterday, every bit as much as the late missed free throw. I don't know what would have happened in that game when it got overtime. That was a stress fest. Didn't matter what side you had. Duke, Michigan State. Let's give Sparty some credit for sealing the deal despite the injuries they've suffered this year. And Zion for the Blue Devils. When it mattered the most, the ball was not in his hands. Duke comes up 1 point short of another Final Four appearance. And, you talk about Auburn, Kentucky. Kentucky looked very tentative in the game against Houston. I thought they were obviously they were very lucky to win that game. But that same offensive tentativeness came into play in the second half over the weekend, and bye-bye Kentucky. That's how you go home. You cannot have offensive tentativeness and the inability for anybody on the team to find a shot during crunch time of these tight games. That's what sent John Calipari and his kids home. And we have quite an interesting Final Four, not the Final Four of Blue Bloods that we were all expecting perhaps coming into this. We'll talk about that more later in the show.
Teddy, Elite Eights were the days for the dogs. Let's not forget these professional rankings, Teddy. In the NBA, you want to talk about a day for dogs. Most of us were focused on the Elite Eight, the big games yesterday. But if you were underdog hunting, or should I say big game hunting in the NBA, you were taking it down. Hawks as high as a plus 300, knock off the freakless Bucks. Mavericks led by Trey Burke, not Doncic, plus 700 winner. Kings get it done. Warriors get it done. Lakers get it done. Boy, if you were betting NBA underdogs, Teddy, what a Sunday.
Oh, no doubt. And if you were taking them on the money line, I talk all the time about the concept of money line underdogs. Yeah, you could have taken let's just take the 3 big dogs. The Kings, the Wizards, and the Mavericks, all plus 450 or higher. You take them plus the points, great. You got paid 6-1 on your 3-team parlay. You took them on the money line, you got paid 263-1 on a 3-teamer. All right. There is vulnerability for the sports books when it comes to money line parlays. And when you talk about ways to make money in the last 10 days of the NBA season, moneyline parlay or two might be a way for you to look. If you're betting dogs yesterday in the NBA or in college, you did pretty well. this weekend. There may be more of that to come in the NBA over the final 10 days of the campaign, regular season campaign.
There was a famous Joe Pesci scene in Casino, Teddy, that said, "I thought you was laying." Well, the Yankees were really laying in all 3 games and came up lame ducks in 2 of the 3. Teddy, let's talk about the Yankees closing minus 320 and minus 420 and getting beaten both of those games. It's a wild betting season to open Major League Baseball. It's colder weather. Pitchers aren't stretched out. We don't sure what we're going to get out of the bullpen. And the lowly Orioles, what are they lying, Teddy? 57.5? 2-1 after the first series against the Yankees.
Yeah, the extraordinarily profitable Baltimore Orioles after a single weekend series. I think the number 1 in MLB in profitability right now because of those 2 big dog cashes. Look, make no mistake about it. And it's good to put this lesson in your head right from the opening weekend of baseball season. The best teams in baseball are going to win 100 games, which means they're going to lose 62. 65, there'll be plenty of losses. The worst teams in baseball, and last year, the Orioles were as bad as it gets. They're still going to win 50 or 60 games. And guess what? They got 2 in a row at big dog prices against the Yankees. It's early, but Baltimore, hey, look at that. A team that nobody wanted any part of takes 2 or 3 from the Bronx Bombers. They weren't the only dogs to come through this weekend, but really the bigger story, some of these early pennant race games. The Phillies get the sweep of the Braves. The Brewers taking 3 out of 4 against the Cardinals. The Padres looking good over the opening weekend. San Francisco, boy, they look like a last place team early.